Good evening and welcome to Viewpoint. Together with experts and newsmakers, we'll make sense of the week's biggest issues and stories. I'm Barnaby Lo. In tonight's conversation,
Leni Robredo, Vice President of the Philippines, key opposition figure. But as soon as it was clear how big of a crisis the coronavirus disease was going to be for the country, Robredo called for unity and cooperation. Not a time for politics, she said. The Vice President's immediate response was to provide healthcare workers and other frontliners with free shuttle buses, personal protective gear, and food, and address the gap in COVID-19 testing with test kits and boots, efforts that President Rodrigo Duterte has publicly acknowledged.
and welcome again to the premiere episode of Viewpoint on Now You Know, and we are very honored and pleased to have with us tonight live the Vice President of the Republic of the Philippines, Leni Robredo, ang Vice Presidente po ng Republika ng Pilipinas, Madam Vice President Leni Robredo. Thank you very much, Madam Vice President. I know it's very rare that you grant media interviews and even more rare that you grant live interviews. And so we really appreciate your time and we appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you, Barnes. Thank you for having me. Good evening to everyone who joined us tonight.
Yeah. Okay. So, Madam Vice President, this is going to be quite a wide-ranging interviews, but I want to start, of course, with what you've been doing, with what your office has been doing all throughout the lockdown period. Of course, now we are on general community quarantine, which is, of course, still a form of quarantine, eased lockdown, if you will, but we're out of the strictest, the stringent lockdown. But all throughout that period, your office has been very active. So tell us more about that. Tell us more about what we saw in the short video.
We've been doing a lot of things, Barnes, since February. I think the entire month of February, we devoted our office on information campaigns on COVID-19. We have come up with videos. We have issued statements. We have invited experts to share their expertise on the virus. We have made calls to the government as early as the end of January. But when March, when I think it was in the second week of March,
May I cut you here, ma'am? When you say you made a call last January, what call was that?
We made the call when we had our first few cases of COVID. We made a call for the government to stop all flights coming from Wuhan already. And because we realized that we were looking at the experiences being the experiences of other countries, and we knew that it was going to be very difficult. So I think it was January 31 when we made the first call to the government to stop flights coming from Wuhan already. But Barnes, we know that our mandate is very limited. So we felt at that time that all that we can do was try to influence policy, that all we can do was help in the information campaign. And we thought that that was going to be the role of the Office of the Vice President during the entire time of the pandemic. But as I was telling you earlier, things changed when March came in. Because I think during the first or second week of March, we started receiving complaints from our health frontliners, from hospitals, that there was a sheer lack of PPEs, of personal protective equipment. So second week of March, our office appropriated 5.9 million pesos for the purchase of PPE sets. At that time, we thought that was enough already. We even thought that was more than enough to supply the lack of PPE sets in Metro Manila. But when after we appropriated funds for it, we were receiving requests already from all over the country, not just in Metro Manila. We were literally
Right. So you focused first on that because that was the first
that was the
problem.
cause. Yes.
Yeah.
That was
Okay. Because
when
I think our maybe our viewers may not understand, but your office, I understand, does not really have the funds to be able to cover all the
yes.
all the problems, right? I
So
mean,
so
correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah.
yes. We have very limited mandate. We have limited resources. And really, talagang ano lang kami, filling in the gaps. That was why
Mm.
initially we thought the 5.9 million we appropriated would be enough. Kasi sabi namin dadating naman siguro na yung supplies coming from DOH. Pero medyo natagalan. And dahil natagalan, we were receiving news already of doctors dying, of many
Mm.
health frontliners having the disease already. So that was when we realized that the 5.9 we appropriated was not nearly enough. That was when we started our partnership with Kaya Natin movement for us to start a fundraising drive online. So the fundraising drive was initiated March 13, if I am not mistaken. And we were very surprised because less than 24 hours after we first launched it, we were already able to hit the 1 million mark. So yung message non Barnes was a lot of people really wanted to help, and they were just looking for a platform by which they can help our frontliners.
Pero
So
after the PPE, ma'am, how did you choose where to focus? Because I know you did not, of course, stop with just PPE. And now, you have funds coming in from private
yes,
individuals and private organizations.
yung
So, paano niyo pinili?
yung pagsanga-sanga ng ginagawa namin, Barnes, really started when supply of PPE sets was dwindling already. May pera na kami pero walang dumadating. That was when we initiated our call for locally produced PPE sets. So that we made a call, we partnered with designers, local designers. We sourced local materials. We partnered with doctors para medically reviewed yung aming ginagawang mga PPE sets. That was the first initiative. That was the next initiative after launching our donation drive. And then ECQ happened. First day of ECQ, yung headlines talaga lahat, no public transport, health personnel were not able to go to work because of lack of public transport. People walking several kilometers just to be able to go to work. We were in the office then. Sabi namin hindi pwede to. So kami sinubukan lang namin. We have Angat Buhay partners who have buses. We called one of our partners, yung Ube Express. Tinanong lang namin, would you be willing to partner with us? We want to do a shuttle service sort of thing. Sabi ka agad nila, yes. Yung the same day that they said yes, that was the first day of the ECQ, pinano na namin yung lahat na rota, call for volunteers, etc., etc. The following day, our shuttle service started. And eto, Barnes, zero knowledge kami on transport. Talagang nangangapa kami. When we planned the routes, kami-kami lang. Tinitingnan namin yung mga mapa, yung mga drivers namin, pinupuntahan yung mga rota. Ano talaga to? Nangangapa, but we were able to do it. The following day, after we first planned, our initial 6 buses already started. Our initial 6 routes started. Ito yung mga staff namin, sila yung mga dispatchers, sila yung mga konduktor, sila yung mga naglilinis ng mga bus. We found a partner, sila yung nag-provide ng gasolina. Ano talaga to? It was really...
But that had to stop, ano? That had to stop, right?
Ang initial plan kasi, Barnes, was ECQ was only supposed to be until April 14. So
That's
yung
right.
partnership namin with the buses, hanggang April 14 lang talaga. We
Okay.
would
So
have
just to be
wanted
clear, it wasn't the government. It wasn't the
no.
government stopping you from.
It
Yeah.
wasn't. And nung palapit na yung April 14, DOTR already had more than 100 buses. So kami, we really tried to coordinate with the OTR already. We gave them our protocols. Sa amin kasi Barnes, each stop merong oras. So we were trying to convince the OTR na sana yung mga shuttle buses may mga oras pa din per stop because it was very helpful for the passengers. They were able to plan their trips accordingly. Um, so we stopped April 14. Pero when we stopped, we stopped with 8 routes. Ang dami namin na serbisyohan. There were a lot of calls for us to extend, but we needed to do something else.
So
When we were,
you said that you talked to the DOTR about what you did. So how do you assess now what they're doing? Because right now we are on GCQ, and especially on the first day of GCQ, there were a lot of complaints and a lot of stories of people still having to walk kilometers upon kilometers, and it just seemed like there was no system at all.
eto kasi
Yeah.
Barnes,
So I guess what I'm asking is, what is your assessment of the GCQ, this transition to GCQ?
ako parehong-pareho yung nangyari sa first day of GCQ, sa first day of ECQ. Sana napagplanuhan na yung mass transport bago pa sinimulan yung ECQ, bago pa sinimulan yung GCQ. Kasi my sense, Barnes, is that, halimbawa yung ECQ when it was March 16 ba yun? I think March 16 was the first day. Parang bigla lang hininto yung public transport na walang plano. Pareho din nitong GCQ. Pareho din ng GCQ na hindi ko alam kung walang plano o kulang lang talaga sa foresight. Pero nakita natin na maraming mga tao yung, we're not able to go to the office or had to walk many kilometers just to go to the office. O sobrang hindi natin pinapply yung mga jeepneys dahil sa social distancing. But we were seeing pictures and videos of, trucks being used to transport stranded passengers, and there was definitely no social distancing. So, ito talaga, para kasi sa akin, Barnes, we are a very small office. Wala naman kaming alam sa transport. But we were able to pull it off. Yung, parang sa akin, imposible na hindi, kung pinagplanuhan lang na maayos, imposible naman sigurong mangyayari ito kung mas yung pagtutok lang to details.
You feel that we went into CQ kind of blind? Is that what you're saying?
Ako, it's difficult to say.
Overall,
Ako, Barnes, it's difficult to say kasi my basis is only what I hear from the news. I am not privy to what is happening in the back end. Pero sa akin yung napapanood sa news. Pero sa akin kasi, Barnes, it has always been the policy of the Office of the Vice President na yung mga ganito, hanapin na lang namin kung paano kami makakatulong. Instead of parang wallowing in frustration, hanapin na lang kung paano makakatulong. Like, when we did the shuttle, it was not perfect, pero we were learning day by day. We were listening to as many suggestions as possible. And then when we were doing the shuttle.
But correct me if I'm wrong, ma'am, because from what I'm hearing from you, since January, February, March, every step of the way you were advising the government and you were giving your ideas, but it sounds like you've been hitting a wall, sort of. Because, from the advising the flight ban and then talking to them about planning the transport, is that fair to say?
Ako kasi sa akin, Barnes, I can only speak for myself. Yun sa akin, we tried as much as possible to give as many suggestions as possible. Pag hindi pinapakinggan yung suggestions, wala naman kami magagawa. But we just try to look for ways by which we can be of help. to make the office more relevant. Kasi para naman sa amin, Barnes, kahit maraming frustrations, we cannot allow those frustrations to get the better of us. We cannot allow those frustrations to paralyze us. Na despite the limited mandate and limited resources, we were able to prove na with collaboration with the private sector, we can do so many things. So sa amin, ganun na lang. Hanap na lang ng paraan. We try to look for as many gaps as possible.
Meron bang para sa inyo na mga tama naman na nagawa? And then on the other hand, what frustrates you the most? Is it because you've talked lengthily about the transport problem, but there are other issues, of course. Mass testing is one very crucial issue and is one that has been so controversial for so many weeks already.
Ako sa akin, Barnes, I think yung ECQ was a good move. Pero tingin ko hindi natin na maximize yung oras kasi ECQ will not kill the virus. ECQ is just giving us time to catch up, giving time for our health system to breathe, giving time for all of us to alam mo yan, to gather our acts together para we would be able to respond in a more efficient manner. Tingin ko while the ECQ was done on time, parang nasayang yung oras that was given to us na until now it's June already. Ang target natin 30,000 tests a day. Hindi ko na alam kung ilan na ngayon, but a few days ago, yung sabi nila nasa may 8,000 mark pa lang tayo. Sobrang layo pa natin from
meron kasi silang capacity and then meron talaga yung number of tests done a day. So
may capacity pero sabi nila may capacity na tayo for 30,000 tests pero ang actual na test na nagagawa is just yung mga 8,000 mark kasi may mga nasira ng Typhoon Ambo. Yung ako, I would have to admit na yung level of frustration ko ngayon, pinakamataas pagdating sa communications. Yung paiba-iba. Yung paiba-iba yung sinasabi. Halimbawa, just in the last few days, sabi, pag MGCQ, pwede nang lumabas ng bahay, yung less than 21 and over 60, the following day, binawi. 3 days ago, sinabi, yung mga tricycles, pwede na mag-fly sa mga highways. Yung ibang mga LGU officials were already made their local guidelines. The following day, binawi. Yung sa akin, this has been happening for quite some time already. And in fact, I have complained about this na. Ito kasi Barnes, I think communication is very important at this point in time. Kasi yung tao takot eh. Yung tao takot, yung tao confused, yung tao naghahanap ng, alam mo yon, masasandalan, hindi nakakatulong na paiba-iba. Hindi nakakatulong na one official would say this, the other official will refute what the other official said. Yung pakiusap lang sana natin, pwede ba mag-usap-usap muna kayo bago mag-make ng public statements?
Para sabi man, sana may Viber group daw.
pero alam mo, we have seen best practices from other countries. Alam mo, New Zealand, yung Germany, very effective yung communications. Yung communication at a time like this, napakahalaga nun kasi people will be more cooperative pag naiintindihan nila kung bakit ganito yung hinihingi sa kanila. Pag nalilito siya, mas lalong nagkakagulo. So ako I would have to admit yun yung number one source of frustration ko at this time.
Just one final point on the pandemic and the quarantine. It's already June. So usually po, in normal times, pasokan na po. I would just like to know what you think about the plan of the education department or the government as a whole with regards to basic education, hindi lang basic education, even higher education. medyo confusing din po ba sa inyo? Because there's face-to-face, sabi ni President Duterte, until walang vaccine, dapat walang face-to-face. But then at some point, sinabi din na pag MGCQ, start face-to-face, pwede. And then there's online, and then there's homeschooling as well.
Actually, very confusing siya sa akin, Barnes. I actually listened to Secretary Briones when she was discussing her suggestions. Pero sa akin kasi, Barnes, same yung aking comment na sana kung suggestions pa lang, wag munang i-announce. Kasi after nung press conference na yon, mas marami yung nalito kung ano yung mangyayari. Sana pag-usap-usapan muna ninyo, tapos kung ano yung desisyon, yun yung i-communicate to the public. Kasi after that press conference, marami naman siyang sinabing maayos. Pero may mga bagay kasi siyang sinabi na hindi realistic. Halimbawa, totoo na yung online learning is the next best thing. Pero yung reality kasi, ang dami namang walang access to the internet. Yung sabi, yung mga walang access to the internet, radyo na lang saka TV. Pero it's not as easy as that. Halimbawa Barnes, sa distrito ko, I was representative of the 3rd District of Camarines Sur before. Sa distrito ko lang, medyo sentro na ito ha. Pero sa distrito ko lang, there are several barangays na wala talaga signal. Na yung nakakarating lang sa kanilang TV ay ABS-CBN, na wala pa ngayon. Wala silang signal sa telepono, definitely walang internet. Yung radyo, paano siya gagawin? So, yung sa akin lang, it is good that we are exploring many avenues. Pero sana when we make this public, sana mas naayos na. Kasi there are more questions than answers after nung press con na yon. So ngayon, yung pinaka wish ko lang, Barnes, na whatever the decision will be, sana whatever the decision will be as far as education is concerned, sana hindi siya discriminating sa mahihirap. Sana
yeah, ma'am, medyo nawala po ang signal ko, so I missed some parts of what you were saying. But anyways, I think I got your point, and if it's okay with you, we'll move on from the quarantine and the pandemic, because I also want to hear your thoughts about the very big issue of the Antiterror Bill this week. I'm sure you're aware of just how controversial this bill has become, and it's soon to become a law. Well, I mean, people are saying that baka hindi pa naman, but it's one step away from becoming a law. So what do you think about all this?
Bahaba ito, Barnes. Pero ito briefly. Yung number one na question talaga about it is timing. Ito yung panahon na yung COVID-19 pandemic is, it's a crisis that we have never gone through before in our entire lifetime. Na because it is of this magnitude, para sa akin, dapat all hands on deck tayo dito. Na yung lahat na makakaya natin, ibuhos natin dito just to make sure that we will survive. Not just survive the virus, but survive economically, lalo yung mga maliliit na tao. Para pag-usapan yung anti-terror bill at a time like this, parang napaka ill-timed. Napaka ill-timed kasi number one, it's very divisive. Ito yung panahon na dapat nagkakaisa tayo. Nagkakaisa tayo sa pagtulong-tulong. Nakilakalimutan muna sana yung points of division para isulong mo ang isang kaisipan na very, very contentious, very divisive. At a time like this, parang sobrang insensitive. Yun yung number one. Number two, what is the rush? Nakita natin what happened at the House of Representatives. Nung botohan, nakita natin how the process went. Hindi tumatanggap na ang amendments, hindi open to discussions, when in fact, months before o last year, ang pinag-uusapan, nag-invite pa ng maraming mga experts and resource persons sa House of Representatives. Pero nung pinag-usapan siya ngayon, ang gusto na lang i-adopt yung Senate version. Bakit ganoon?
Pero 2017 pa raw po ito, ma'am. So parang,
ano kasi siya?
sinasabi nila parang medyo matagal na rin. Yeah.
Medyo matagal na siyang pinag-uusapan. Pero ito nga, Barnes, kung titingnan natin yung nangyari sa House of Representatives from 2017 until COVID-19 happened, ang dami nilang pinakinggan ng mga experts, ang dami pinakinggan ng mga resource persons, pinakinggan yung mga dissenting voices. Pero bakit ngayon, bigla na lang hindi na siya mahalaga? Yung entire process hindi na mahalaga. Ngayon, bawal na mag-introduce ng amendments. Kailangan na lang talagang i-adopt yung Senate version. Kailangan i-adopt yung Senate version siguro para maiwasan yung pagkakaroon ng BICAM. So, ang tanong,
That's how you see it. Pinamadali siya.
Yes. Bakit siya nila-rush? Ito, and it's not even discussing yet yung mga particular provisions of the bill. Pagdating sa
you're
provision,
also a lawyer, so you can discuss some of the provisions, what your reservations are about that. You're a human rights lawyer. I think maybe some people forget that you're also a human rights lawyer.
Ito, ang daming questionable provisions dito. Ang daming questionable provisions dito, Barnes. Yung number one, sobrang wide yung definition ng terrorist. Na ito, parang dito, hindi na lang yung action, hindi yung actions yung ginagawang criminal, pero pati yung intent. Tapos sino yung pwedeng mag-determine kung terrorist ka o hindi? Yung law enforcement agencies. Sinasabi nila na this is an amendment to the Human Security Act of 2007. Na yun nga, very questionable law na, pero mas malala pa to. Bakit natin sinasabing mas malala? Halimbawa, yung batas, yung bill, did away with one important safety net. At yung safety net na yun, I forgot the section 29. Hindi ko maalala yung exact section, pero ito yung nagpipinalize ng mga wrongful arrests. Under the Human Security Act, yung mga wrongful arrests for every day na nasa jail yung wrongly inarrest mo, kailangan kang i-fine na, if I'm not mistaken, 500,000 pesos. Inalis ito. So, pag tiningnan mo, there is not enough na safety nets yung nandyan. Pag ganon, sobrang prone to abuse. Eto, with mere intent, pwede ka nang maging criminally liable. Ako, in all honesty, Barnes, I think ang paniniwala ko talaga, our existing criminal laws are enough. Kung hindi ito enough, hindi naman tayo barred from introducing amendments, pero wag naman ganito ka brazen na
a lot of criticism from non-lawyers, ma'am, because you're a lawyer, of course, and so you understand the law better. But for non-lawyers, I think from what I've seen, a lot of the criticism has been the trust or the lack of it on the sitting government. Yung buong lockdown period, yung nakita natin how the lockdown was implemented or has been implemented on the ground by law enforcers, and just very recently we have the Piston 6 and yung Cebu 8, yung mga inaresto, yung mga ganun ba, yung mga nakikita mong telltale signs of possible abuses under this new anti-terror law?
Ako isa lang yun, Barnes. Nakikita natin over the past few months or so na parang seemingly hindi patas. Hindi patas yung pag-implement ng batas. Halimbawa, nakita natin na merong isang police general na nagkaroon ng party na walang social distancing. Tapos, parang wala lang. Pero nakikita natin itong mga mahihirap na kung ilalagay nga natin sa konteksto kung bakit ginagawa nila yung ginagawa nila, kasi nakikipaglaban sila para mabuhay. Parang walang compassion, dito nagbe-breed yung discontent ng tao. Pag nakikita niya na hindi patas yung pag-implement, ako ang paniniwala ko, Barnes, ang tao magko-cooperate pag naiintindihan niya kung bakit kailangan natin tong gawin at nakikita niya na rich or poor pareho yung ngipin ng batas. Pero ang nangyayari kasi ngayon, hindi ganoon eh. Merong mga officials na hindi alam mo yon, hindi sumusunod, na walang nangyayari sa kanya. Pero yung mga mahihirap na walang-wala, nakita natin yung mga itsura ng mga naaresto na, alam mo yon, yung visual picture lang na behind bars, merong antanda na, yung parati mong tatanungin, nasaan yung compassion? Yung isa sinabi, merong sakit.
The law is the law. Sabi nila, the law is the law. So,
yun nga eh. Kung the law is the law, dapat sana kahit government official, pareho yung implementation nila ng batas. Pero ang tao kaya masama yung loob kasi nakikita niya na hindi pantay eh. Hindi pantay. Yung sa akin lang, yung visual na itsura kasi, yung behind bars, matanda na, mukhang may sakit, nakakaapekto sa pakiramdam ng tao. Kaya nagre-react siya in the way that he is reacting now. Pero sa akin lang, Barnes, tuldukan ko lang ulit yung sa Antiterror Bill.
Yes, ma'am.
Yung sa akin kasi very powerful yung boses yung mga officials natin from the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region. Very powerful yung boses kasi sila first hand na kaharap talaga nila yung terrorism. Nakita ko yung interview kay Congressman Mujib Hataman. Yung sinasabi niya na hindi effective yung ganito, baka nga yung resulta pa nito mas lumala pa yung sitwasyon. Ang hinihingi ng tao doon to quell terrorism is good governance. Ang hinihingi ng tao doon to quell terrorism is education. Ang hinihingi ng tao doon, employment and livelihood. Ang hinihingi ng tao, stronger justice system. Ito yung mga sasagot sa terrorism. Hindi yung mga batas na nagbibigay ng opportunities for more abuse. Yung sa akin lang, ito yung mga boses na dapat natin pakinggan. Kasi ito yung mga boses ito yung mga tao na who had to contend with terrorism, parang eye to eye and face to face. Bakit hindi sila pakinggan? Yung sa akin, yung rush.
But do we need a new anti-terror law? Or is it just this version of the anti-terror law that we do not need?
Ako, this version we do not need. Definitely. Pero yung sa akin nga, sinabi ko sa iyo, Barnes, kanina, if you will ask me, our existing laws are already enough. But if the authorities are saying that they are not enough, mag-propose ng mga batas, pero wag naman yung mga panukala na would give rise to abuses to happen. Yung sa akin, let us keep in mind na whatever laws will be passed now will affect not just us but the generations to come. Yung sa akin, kailangan yung anti-terror law would protect our people, not endanger them. So sa
As a
akin,
key member of the opposition, do you feel that you are a direct target of this bill once it becomes a law?
yung sa akin, I can be, but I don't think that's the meat of why I am opposing this. Kasi naman even without this anti-terror law, a lot of cases have been filed against me already, Barnes. The latest one was the sedition case. Pero yung sa akin nga, para sa akin, Barnes, we are all the more endangering our people. Yung sa akin, let us not pass laws that will further weaponize our authorities, na lalong naaapi, lalo na yung maliliit. Yun sa akin, if we need to pass more legislation, let us do so in a manner na all voices are being heard. Hindi naman pinipigilan mag-introduce ng mga amendments or new legislations, pero wag naman sa ganitong paraan. Wag sa ganitong paraan na parang nire-railroad talaga lahat. And the reason why some of the previous authors voted no was precisely because ang claim nila ayaw makinig sa proposed amendments. Bakit ganyan?
Since you mentioned court cases, can we get a quick update on? You mentioned, of course, multiple court cases, but the one that I think that we have been really watching very closely is the recount. Yes. Is there any update on that? Because of course we are now on pandemic mode, and still on quarantine, and so it's not normal. Yeah.
Kasi yun, Barnes, if you will recall, I think it was last year or 2 years ago na yung direction was really to look at the votes again. The protestor, which is Mr. Marcos, was asked to choose 3 pilot provinces, which he thinks best exemplify the fraud that he is talking about. So, Mr. Marcos chose 3. Nagkaroon ng bilangan ulit doon sa 3. And during the manual recounting, I gained more votes. It seems like ayaw niyang tanggapin yung nangyari doon sa recounting, and now he wants to add 3 more provinces in Mindanao. So eto ngayon yung pinag-aawayan. Whether to...
So it's not over, but at this point, how confident are you? Because you sound quite confident, actually. That you're going to get through.
I have been confident since day one. I have been confident that there is nothing to this protest case. If all the procedures will be given due course, that the truth will come out in the end. Yung sa akin lang yung istorbo. Yung sa akin yung medyo nakakainis lang dito yung istorbo na here we are trying to do the best that we can given our limited mandate and our limited resources. Pero eto pa, parang yung natalo sa election would not accept the results of the elections and nag-a-attempt pa to throw a cloud of doubt over the vice presidency. Ito yung medyo nakakainis dito kasi rather than magbuelo na lang tayo ng trabaho, parang nakakaistorbo pa siya. Pero other than that, hindi naman ako natatakot in the sense na alam ko na pag nagbilangan ulit, panalo talaga ako kasi hindi naman ako nandaya ng election.
I've been told that you have another interview after this, and we only have a few more minutes. So I'm going to throw in, so I'm going to throw in one last question, which is related to that. How do you feel when critics constantly call you the fake vice president? And where do you stand between, because your critics keep calling you the fake vice president, and they keep saying that you're not working enough as the duly elected vice president of the Philippines. But on the other hand, your supporters are saying that you are not being a strong enough opposition leader. So, I mean, where do you stand in between those two very extreme, very opposite criticisms?
Ako, Barnes, yung fake vice president doesn't affect me at all. Yung name calling doesn't affect me at all because I know that the truth will eventually reveal itself in the end. Yun yung number one. Number two, yung accusations that I am not working enough. I think my body of work would speak for itself. We have done a lot of reinventing sa Office of the Vice President. We have ISO accreditation. Even with very limited resources, we were able to operate our anti-poverty program, yung Angat Buhay, for almost 4 years already. We started with 50 communities. Now we are in more than 200 communities already. We're able to do all this pandemic-related work. Ako tingin ko, ano naman yon. Kung sino pa magsasabi na wala kaming ginagawa, talagang ayaw na lang tumingin. Yun namang mga kakampi who wish that I would be more vocal against this administration. Ako sometimes it is unfortunate. Kasi nakakalimutan nila na hindi lang naman ako leader ng opposition, pero vice president din ako. And people expect me to yung mga non-political would expect me to do the best I can to be able to fulfill whatever limited mandate I have. Yung having said that, tingin ko, Barnes, hindi ako nagpabaya na maipahayag yung boses ko when it is needed. I think I will be more relevant kung nagboboses ako pag kailangan lang. Pag nagboboses ako each and every time gumagalaw yung gobyerno, I think I will render myself irrelevant. So yung sa akin, if I see things that I think are not in accordance with our values as Filipinos, I really make sure that my voice is there. Whether they listen to my voice or not.
Because since you mentioned that, if you can just real quick give a comment on the latest United Nations Human Rights Report on the Philippines, because in the past, if I'm not mistaken, it was 2016 or 2017, you commented on the human rights situation in the Philippines under the Duterte administration. And now the United Nations has come out with a detailed report. So, and saying, of course, kind of actually validating what you've said a couple of years back.
Ito Barnes, it is unfortunate for the country, but the UN report is very factual. It is based on evidences gathered or submitted to it. Ito lang, lumabas lang kasi siya at a time like this na our focus is on the effects of the pandemic on the Filipino people. But there will be time for that. Yung sa akin, mahirap siyang pag-usapan ngayon na marami tayong mga kababayan na gutom, na marami tayong mga kababayan na nangangailangan ng tulong. But if at all, the UN report only validated what we have been saying for so long, that there are a lot of human rights abuses that are being committed, especially in connection with the war on drugs. Yung sa akin, it was a validation. Very factual. Yung mga sinasabi natin, hindi na nila pwedeng sabihin na nagsisinungaling tayo kasi andun yun. Yung sa atin lang, there will be time to focus on that. Pero ngayon kasi, yun nga, we are focused on helping our kababayans. Pero yung sa akin lang, having said that also, bantayan natin yung lahat, siguraduhin natin na wala nang mas marami pang violations na mangyayari. Especially now na dumadaan tayo sa ganitong crisis.
All right, and on that note, we have to end the program. We are out of time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bart. I'm
President
sorry,
Leni
it's 6:45 already, so I have to go. Pero maraming
yes. Talagang sinagad talaga natin. So thank you so much,
Thank you.
Vice President Leni Robredo, for joining us tonight. Thank you so much to everyone watching on Facebook Live on NYK's Facebook page. And of course, this program is on live every Saturday at 6 in the evening. Again, my name is Barnaby Lo, and this is Viewpoint.